Dad, my computer was stolen.
No, it wasn't. We just gave it to Amanda's daughters. They need it for school.
What? That's a top-of-the-line gaming computer. They don't need something with that much power just to do math problems.
Well, I paid for it, so I get to say who gets to use it. And we gave it to Amanda's daughters. Besides, those video games are a complete waste of time.
Hi there, my name is Beth, and I really lived a life very similar to something out of a twisted fairy tale. It's complete with a wicked stepmother and not one, but two evil stepsisters as well. However, the real villain of this story is actually my father, but I'm getting a bit ahead of myself. Let me rewind things a bit to back when I was 14. My mother and father would argue constantly, and more than once. The police would need to be called and break up their fighting. On a few occasions, they would even throw things at each other. Suffice to say that they ended up getting divorced, but thankfully, rather than have a long and heated legal battle over who got custody of me. For the first time in quite a long time, they were able to come to an agreement and chose to have equal custody of me. It was a bit hectic spending 1 week with one parent and then the next week with the other. But even though they hated each other, they both adored me, and I loved them both just as much. And to be honest, they were much better parents once they weren't together anymore. They were also much happier people as well, but all that changed when my dad met Amanda. Anyone with half a brain in their head could see that she was a complete gold digger, but my dad couldn't get past just seeing a very attractive and hot woman. My mother was a bit on the heavier side, and Amanda looked like she could get a job posing for a swimsuit magazine. Honestly, I really didn't care who my dad dated so long as he was happy and they treated him well. But Amanda was obsessed with keeping up appearances. To make matters worse, her two daughters were exactly the same, and all three of them were obsessed with the latest fashion trends and designer clothes. For me, all I cared about was my video games, reading comic books, and going to every movie that ever came out. When they first started to date, I tried to keep my distance, but my dad insisted that I get to know Amanda and her daughters. They did try to include me in their favorite things, but it was a terrible idea.
Hey, Beth, are you interested in going shopping with me and my daughters?
Maybe. What are you going shopping for?
We don't really have a purpose in mind. We'll just go and try on clothes and see if we can find any good deals.
Oh, yeah, thanks, but I'll pass. I only really go shopping when I need something.
Well, we need to go and try on the latest designer dresses. Don't you want to try one on? They'll look so much better than that hideous sweatshirt and jeans that you always wear.
It was plainly obvious that Amanda and her daughters were girly girls, and I was a bit more of a tomboy. We just didn't have any overlapping interest, and that was entirely fine by me. But my dad really wanted us to bond, and was constantly trying to force me to spend time with them. Eventually, he did give up, though, but only after he and Amanda got married. The wedding was a nightmare, as Amanda and her daughters forced me to wear a massive poofy pink dress. I felt like such a fool wearing that hideous thing, but they insisted that it was the latest fashion trend, and that it was important for us to wear them. It was amazing that I didn't throw up the second the dress was put on my body, to be honest. At any rate, after they were married, things began to be a bit weird. I still continued to go back and forth between my parents, and the first time that something felt off was this one time that I came back from being at my mom's for a week. As I was walking towards my room, Amanda stopped me.
Oh, you're back? Well, listen, since you don't live here full-time like we do, we felt that it was only fair that my eldest daughter get your room since it's the biggest room in the house.
You did what? Dad, did you know about this?
Yeah, sorry, kiddo. It's only fair, though.
I was so furious. It didn't really matter that my new room was slightly smaller, but the fact that they hadn't even asked and just chose to move my things without my knowledge. Plus, they didn't exactly treat my belongings with any kind of respect. They had essentially put all my books, comic books, and video games in one huge pile in the closet. It took me days to sort through them all and put them back the way I had them. That, however, was only the first incident. A couple months went by, and one day I went out to hang out with my friends, and when I came back, I discovered that my computer was missing. I thought we had been robbed, but then, when I went to my father, my fear turned to anger as my dad told me what happened. Dad, my computer was stolen.
No, it wasn't. We just gave it to Amanda's daughters. They need it for school.
What? That's a top-of-the-line gaming computer. They don't need something with that much power just to do math problems.
Well, I paid for it, so I get to say who gets to use it. And we gave it to Amanda's daughters. Besides, those video games are a complete waste of time.
After that, I stopped keeping anything of value at my dad's house, and for the next few years, it was one thing after another. When I finally turned 18 and could choose where I wanted to live, I made the choice to move everything to my mom's. It was just the right decision, really, since my mom lived close to the college that I wanted to attend, and by living there, I could save myself some travel time and money. At least that was what I told my father, and it was true. But the bigger and more important reason was because I had had enough of Amanda and her hellspawn, and I wanted to finally move away from them and their greedy paws. Even after I graduated from college, I still lived at my mom's, at least until I found my first job as game designer for a major video game company. I had taken programming in college, and I was pretty good at it. So much so that they offered me a fairly well-paying position. And so for a few years, things were going well for me. I loved my job, and I still kept in touch with my dad, but I only really visited occasionally, and only really when my stepsisters and stepmother weren't around. However, my father gave me a call out of the blue one day.
Hey Beth, listen, can you come over for dinner this weekend? We're hosting a special dinner for your stepsister, and we really want you to be there.
Do I really have to go, Dad? They don't care about me at all.
Yes, it's very important that you come. It's mandatory.
Part of me wanted to fight back against the fact that he didn't even want to give me a choice in the matter, but I wasn't interested in fighting him at the moment. And so I went over when he asked and found out that it was all a part of some scheme that he and Amanda had cooked up. They had apparently invited over a friend of theirs that had a rather wealthy son that they were trying to set up with Amanda's eldest daughter. Unlike me, both of her daughters hadn't done much with their lives. Neither had taken any schooling after high school, and they didn't even have part-time jobs. My father even still gave them an allowance which only partially fed their shopping addictions. I could tell that my father was eager to marry off one of them so that he wouldn't have such a strain on his own bank account. The only snag was that their friend and his son wanted to meet the entire family, and that included me. The idea was that he wanted to ensure that we were a healthy and well-rounded family, and that we would be a good influence on his son. Personally, I couldn't care less, but since my dad wanted me there, I had no choice. Just before dinner, my father's friend showed up along with his son. Until that moment, I had never felt butterflies in my stomach when seeing someone. But once Ryan came into the room, I felt an instant attraction to him. However, I knew that I needed to ignore him since he wasn't there to meet me but my stepsister. The funny thing, though, was that while she introduced herself to him, he kept glancing over at me. If didn't know better, I could have sworn that he felt the same way I did. As dinner went on, we kept catching each other staring at the other, and I discovered that he had a lot in common with me. He worked in finance, but his passion was playing video games, and he had a home theater system installed in his home because he loved movies so much. I had to bite my tongue more than once to resist hitting on him. Meanwhile, my stepsister was completely failing to impress him. Every time he asked her a question, she would make rude remarks.
So what kinds of things do you do for fun?
Oh, I love shopping and reading fashion magazines. What about you?
Oh, I love movies and games. I think I've seen every film ever made at least once.
Why, that sounds like such a waste of time, especially since most movies are so boring. You sound just like Beth.
I'm not surprised by that.
As soon as he said it, I began to blush. I knew that he wasn't there for me, but it just felt like he was the perfect guy for me. As the night came to a close, he secretly passed me a slip of paper when no one was looking. On it was his phone number. After that day, we began talking and began dating. I knew that once my father found out that he would be angry, but I didn't care. Although my reasons for pursuing a relationship with him weren't motivated by revenge, I would be lying if I said that stealing him away from my stepsister didn't feel good to me. As the weeks went on, I knew that I needed to tell my father about him and that I was dating him. I had to come clean since it was only a matter of time before they found out. Hey, Dad. So I wanted to talk to you about Ryan.
Ryan? Oh, you mean my friend's kid. Yeah, that guy is an idiot. I asked my friend about him and he said that he is dating some ugly, nerdy girl. Ah, well, I was so close to finally marrying off one of Amanda's kids. You can't believe how much of a burden they are on me. It's a shame, but he's a loser.
No, he really isn't. And just for your information, I'm the nerdy girl that he is dating. But good to know that you weren't all that emotionally invested in him dating your stepdaughter. With that, I hung up on him. It was bad enough that he badmouthed the man that I was growing to love, but for him to badmouth me, even though he didn't realize that he was doing so, was unforgivable. It took me months before I finally spoke with him again, and it was only to rub his nose in the fact that I was engaged to Ryan. Years passed, and Ryan and I got married, and we now have 2 lovely children. Meanwhile, my 2 stepsisters are still single, miserable, and living off of my father's money. They've grown quite fat over the years, since they essentially do nothing other than shop and watch TV all day long as well. In fact, things got so bad that my father was finally forced to kick Amanda and her daughters out of his house and divorce her. They were driving him in financial ruin, and he finally got a backbone and realized that he had made a terrible mistake. Shortly after that, he called me up and was crying on the phone, begging me to forgive him for all of the times that he had sided with them over me and for ruining our relationship. I didn't want to forgive him, but Ryan encouraged me to at least give him a second chance. Since then, my father has actually made an attempt to better himself, and he has been a very good grandfather as well. To be honest, I'm very grateful that I attended that dinner all those years ago. The thought of Ryan ending up with one of my stepsisters is a terrifying one. He truly would not have been happy with her, and she would have bled him dry of all his wealth. My father to this day says that he is happy that I ended up with such a wonderful husband, but I know that he is secretly salty that I stole him away from my stepsisters. But hey, he chose me. I can't help it. I'm his princess, and he is my Prince Charming. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe and leave a comment down below saying I subscribed, and we will try our best to reply to your comment.